welcome to my first ever board game video. Today's video is about Revolution, the Dutch Revolt. And my goal is, I wonder if I will succeed though, my goal is that if you find another opponent to play this game with you, and you invite him for, let's say, on a Saturday, that you can say on a Friday, dude, watch this video. So this board game, it's quite intense, it's quite complex, to be honest. It's one of the most complex, well, maybe the complex board game that I have ever played personally. And well, that is the one big problem with this game. Not that it's so complex, but to find other players to play it with you, right? But why is it so hard to find other players? Well, that's because of the following thing. This game is quite heavy to play yourself, and although the board game itself says 4 to 8 hours, 4 hours, no, that's not going to work. You are not going to play this game from A to Z in 4 hours. Not going to happen. So, and if you want to explain this game to a new player, well, that costs you at least 1.5 hours. And then, of course, he's not very good at it, and he has a lot of questions during those whole 4 or 5 hours that you're playing. And away is your Saturday, and he goes home thinking, meh. Well, even, well, actually he had to think, wow, but that is the goal you want to reach. Okay, let's start with the board itself. It's not that big, to be honest. This is the upper half, and as you can see, it is the Netherlands. Well, it is what would become the Netherlands in the end. And the lower half is what is the current Belgium, a piece of France, and a piece of Luxembourg, Germany. Okay, to start this game, obviously you need a board. But together with the board comes a lot of pieces. It comes city cards, you have provinces cards, and you have the 5 factions cards. Also, you need all these little, well, these carton things from the factions, which is the funny thing. On one side you can see the faction, on the other side there is money. Also very handy is to keep your manual at your side, so you can always look things up. I always got 2, because I've got an English one, the original one, and I printed a Dutch version for myself. By the way, you can find all the links to the downloadable stuff that I'm going to show you today. Also very handy are the player aid cards. The game gives you one already. One, yes, that is this one. It's not very specific, and well, again, it's only one. If you're playing it with more players, you need more player aid cards. There was one guy on Board Game Geek that made a very cool and well, a very clear player aid card. I decided to take that from him, recreate it a bit in Dutch, but the original English one is still in Board Game Geek. Download link below, and mine, the Dutch version, is also in the download link below. And as you can see, there are 5 player aid cards, all in the color of the faction, so in their own color, and it tells you what every round, every step you take, what the possibilities are to do. For example, in one round you have 20 steps, and well, it's hard to remember in what order they come, and what every step is, obviously. So that's why this player card is here, or this player aid card. You can see all the steps. Okay, first off is the board. Let's take a look at it. I find this very pretty, but well, it's about your taste, isn't it? Okay, I will explain to you all the different elements on this board, but I'll start in general. Here you can see a map of what will become the Netherlands. And yes, that's with the current Belgium, France a bit, and Germany. Because this became the Republic of the Netherlands, and yes, that was with the current Belgium, well, for a large piece. If we take a closer look to the board, you can see that it's divided in several, well, let's say areas, with all these different colors and stuff. Well, these are the provinces, but they are also divided in what is being called regions. And to show you what a region is, let's say, and I will use in the entire video the original Dutch names for it, because I know that some of you have troubles pronouncing it, so well, you might learn something. This, for example, is the province Overijssel. Overijssel has two cities, as you can see. Well, they're not cities, they're towns. And how can you see the difference? Because a city has a double, some sort of a star ring next to it, while a town only has a square. This province, you can see, here is its border, and here is its border. But there is a difference between the borders. This is only a line, and that is some, well, you can say a double line. That other double line is here, in the province Gelderland. So that means that these provinces are connected in a region. So you have a province, and to take a look at the border, you have a region. Towns that are written in, let's say, white are trading towns. So like Nijmegen and Arnhem. Some towns or cities have this little roof thingy with the pillars. That is a university. You have that here in Harderwijk, also here in Franeker, which is funny because Franeker is also a trading town. Other towns have a little cross on it, like Arras. That means that in this town there is a bishop. Also cities can have this cross. But what is also funny is that some cities also have a university and a bishop. Every province has its own province card, as you can see here. It's very handy because you can see where it lays. And also you can see how much victory points you score. This one is a 1. After every round you own it, or while you dominate it. This is how much money you will get for it, and this is the limit of pieces in that province, which I will come to later. Cities also have their own city cards. For example, Antwerpen has its own city card, and Antwerpen is connected to a bunch of other cities or towns. And well, it gives you extra privileges if you own those towns as well. I will come to that later. As you can see, Antwerpen is connected with Brussels, Ghent, Leuven, and this French, I think it's called Tournai. As you can see, Leuven is a university and Tournai has a bishop. Those universities and bishops are very important for the game. As you can see here, there is on the board an extra box for these universities. And there you can see that there are 7 universities all over this board. In Keulen, Leuven, Leiden, Franeker, Groningen, Utrecht and Harderwijk. This is a box for the bishoprics. I have so much trouble pronouncing that word. But all the towns or cities where there are bishops. There are 6 of them. And they will never go away. But you can see, or they are owned by the Reformers, or they are owned by the Catholics. Well, what are those factions that I'm talking about? Well, there are 5. And even though you're not playing with 5 players, the most of them, except for nobility, will be in the game. This is the standard playing order. So when a playing order for some reason is not to be decided, you have to go to this playing order. Each faction has its own color. For example, the Catholics are yellow. That means that their little pieces are yellow, their money is yellow, their armies are yellow, they're not here, and well, I even made their playing aid cards in yellow. Let me show you the scoreboard. As you can see, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, no, it's half a point each. So you start with 0, then .5, 1, 1, 5, and all the way up to 19.5. And if you will come there, wow, kudos to you. All the way on top of the board is, yes, the North Sea, but next to it, it is the game turn board. And as you can see, this game is not over when a certain amount of score is reached or anything. No, you play 5 rounds, and that is it. So on the side of the board are these, what is being called the support boxes. And how they work, I will explain to you later. But what I do explain now is that these support boxes can be used by several factions. Well, it says which factions can make use of these boards. But for example, the London merchants can be used by the burghers and the nobility. The support from the emperor can be used by the Catholics and the nobility. If there are support pieces here, they can be dragged into these provinces. So, for example, Holland, Vlaanderen and the Generaliteitslanden. Or in English, Holland, Flanders, Generality. So that means if there are pieces here and you want to have them supporting Holland, for example, they can go into the province of Holland. And they cannot go into, for example, Overijssel. And some support boxes are there only for one faction. So, for example, the French support is only for nobility, and the Jesuits are only for the Catholics. The allegiance of citizens. That is in the allegiance of citizens. That is the table in the left top corner of the board. It is a very, very important influence instrument where you can put out your influence all over the citizens of the cities that you own. Or not even the cities that you own, but the cities that are owned by other factions. Which is very cool because if, for example, the Catholics are the boss in Amsterdam, well, you can put money in Amsterdam to make them go away. The last thing that I did not explain yet are these boxes. Those boxes are the boxes for the armies. And as you can see, some are small with only 2 slots. Some are a bit bigger, 3 or maybe even 4 slots. And others are quite huge, with 6 slots. There's only one of 6 and one of 5, and I will tell you now that yes, here and here will be the most, well, I wouldn't say fighting, but the most action is going on here and here later in the game. As with the most board games, setting up the board is not so cool. So I will do it myself, then return to you when it's all set. Okay, I got the basic setup, just like the manual says in 3.6, and I set this board game for a 2 players game. That means that the nobility will not take part in this game. Well, it's quite hard to find an opponent, 1. So it is very hard to find 2 opponents, or maybe even 3 or 4. So you can play this game with 5 players. That means every player has his own faction. That means that if you play with 2 players, you get two factions each. So, to go back to the factions, player 1 has the Catholics and the Habsburgers, which is one side, so they will help each other. And the Burghers and the Reformers will be 1 player as well. That means that their score will be individually placed on the scoreboard here, but the eventual score, so the final score, will be for player 1, both scores of the Catholics and the Habsburgers combined. Okay, the manual also tells you where to place these status pieces on this table. I use black tables now, or black pieces, but that doesn't really matter. If you like to see who already owns the town, for example, if you look at Haarlem, and Haarlem is here, Haarlem has a burgher in there, so he's the dominant piece.
that means that Haarlem is owned by a blue piece. So you can say, well, I use the blue piece. By the way, every other side has a different color, so there are plenty of colors to be used. Same thing goes for the scores. I always put it on 0 when I start the game. But what you also can do is you can look what the actual starting score is. For example, Brugge is now owned by the Reformed. So you take the city card of Brugge, which is already 1 point. So you can look at what the starting score is, then place your thing. This is an example. For example, when the Reformed start with 7, the Catholics with 11, etc. So you can see how the progress of the game goes. The Habsburgers, those are the red faction, is the only faction that starts with armies. You can choose where you want to start with 2 armies, as long as it's on an orange little block. And the armies goes like this. Every army that's in a army box like this one controls the whole region. So that means in here, this is the region. So this army box contains 2 provinces, Vlaanderen and Artois. Habsburg is here and here. They have 2 friends, Catholics, and 2 enemies. So that's why I always choose to start in this region with 1 army. My other army I chose to place there, because in this region, Overijssel and Gelderland, there is an army box over here with an orange box, and there is 1 piece of Habsburgers and 1 piece of the Burgers. So I would like to start a little war going on here, so I can support that 1 little piece that is over there. Now at the start of the game, the Catholics are quite, well, they're a step ahead, you would say. And as you can see, they have 3 cities that are, well, quite Catholic already, and that gives them advantages. For example, if a city is influenced that far that the status pieces is in this row, then it says add 1 Catholic unit, remove 1 anti-Catholic unit, which will be Reformed or the Burgers. At this row it says remove 1 anti-Catholic piece, and that means from that city. So, for example, if Haarlem becomes Catholic, that place of that 1 unit in Haarlem needs to be removed. If it gets more Catholic though, is add 1 Catholic unit to Haarlem and remove 1. So this one will in fact be replaced by a Catholic unit. If you start playing this game, you can see how much pieces every player would get, every faction would get. So, well, this is a Catholic piece and this is a Reformer, but it doesn't matter. So you can see 2 players, and all of this is in the manual and are on the player sheets, the player aid sheets, as well the Dutch version as on the English version. As you can see, we're starting with 2 players, so we need 40 pieces for every faction. So that means 40 of these. So again, I set up the game for 2 players. Which means that 1 player has both Catholic and the Habsburgers. Well, this is how you should place it in front of you. Well, some sort of. This is your stack, so these are your pieces, and you have 40 pieces in total, which means there are some here, but there are also some that are on the board already. So the Catholic has 8 pieces on the board, so that means there are 32 over here. That's not correct. There are, to be honest, 28, because there are also 4 over here. So that means there are also already 12 pieces in the game. This is the rest. This is your stack. And these are your armies. In a player of 2 players, there are only to be used 6 armies. That is also in a game of 4 and 5 players. Only in a game of 3 players, you are allowed 8 armies per faction. Though the Catholics is the only faction that starts with money, the burghers and the reformers start with pieces on the board, actually in the support boxes. So the reformers are here, the Calvinists, the London merchants are for the burghers, and while the nobility is not being a part of the game and a two players game, this whole support box only accessible for the burghers. And they have one piece here at the Huguenots. Some of these are colored, well, not colored at all, they are blank. Others are half colored and others are full colored. That means when there is a piece on here, on the not colored, so on the blank box, you have to place it on the board. When it's on a half colored box, you can you can choose, or you can place it on the board, which is the blank half, or you can use it to take this piece and make it your treasury. So that means that it goes to here and it will be money. So the start of the game, the reformers have 4 pieces all on half colored boxes. That means they have, well, they can choose to make it like this, for example, or to place it as money. If you place it on the board, you can only place it in a province that has an existing or future university. I can only place those pieces on the provinces itself, so on the farmlands to say so. For example, here the London merchants, it says, when you look behind it, it's a half colored, so you can make it cash, or you can choose to place these units on the board, but they have to be placed in the province, Holland, Vlaanderen, or the Generality, the Generaliteitslanden. But that means that you have to place them in the province itself. So, for example, if I want to place this in Vlaanderen, I'm going to Vlaanderen. I cannot place them in a city nor in a township. No, I have to place them on the farmlands. When the moment is there that you can use the support boxes, you do not, I repeat, you do not have to look at the province limit. The province limit is the limit that tells you how much units these pieces can be in one province. For example, 5 units can be in Gelderland, 3 in Kleve, 7 in Keulen. But you do not have to look at it. You can fill it up with, I don't know, maybe 10 pieces. Then there are too many units, but there is a next step for that. The Huguenots is a special thing, because you can use these units, as you can see, to place them on a board, because these are both blanks. And you have to place them then in Vlaanderen, Friesland, Holland or Zeeland. But what it also does is it intercepts the Spanish treasury. So for example, if the Spanish treasury has 4 pieces in this box, I'm sorry, not the Spanish treasury, but the Spanish faction, they can take these pieces when the support box step is there in the round, to take them, and they can make it, they can turn it into money. But because there is 1 piece at the Huguenots, if they take them all, 1 of them will go to the burghers, 1 bit of cash. If they take 2, wait, it plays it back. If they take 2, also 1 goes to the burghers. If they take 3, also 1 goes to the burghers. If they take only 1, that 1 goes to the burghers. That is the interception thing, the interception privilege of the Huguenots. Obviously, this one doesn't go to the burghers, but what will happen? Let's say they take 4, then 3 are for the Catholics. So, let's follow me. They will have 7 now. This one will go back in their stock, and this one will stay here, but they intercepted 1, so the burghers will get 1 piece of cash. And the last thing you have to know about this little box, there can only be one faction. So yes, the burghers and the reformers can make use of this box, but only one at a time. So this is not allowed. So now you know how all these support boxes work. They're quite easy when you look at the colors and when you read where you can place those pieces. But there is one support box that is a bit weird maybe. That is the water beggars support box. The water beggars, those are independent. Of course, they fight for an independent republic, so they are not on the Spanish side, so they hate the Catholics and the Habsburgers, but well, they fight for whoever hires them. That can be the burghers or the reformers. Now, the water beggars are, well, they're quite unique. They are independent. They want an independent republic, so they hate the Spanish, that means the Catholics and also the Habsburgers. So they want to fight for only the burghers and the reformers. But you have to hire them. 2 pieces of cash each, which is a lot. And that is every round again. After a round, they will be placed back in this support box. In real life, the water beggars fled for the Spanish troops and they fled to England, so that's where they were based. And therefore, they can only attack this region, to say so. So Zeeland, Generaliteitslanden, Holland, and with the rivers to Utrecht, Gelderland, and Overijssel. So what do these water beggars actually do? Well, they have a lot of abilities, so I will tell you later. So what you might notice is that when you set the board for 2 players, that there are a lot of empty towns or even cities. And that is where these fellas come in. These are the, well, 6th faction, if you will, the neutrals. They are grey, as you can see. You have to place 2 of them on every empty city. And you have to place 1 on every empty town. How does one make points? Well, first off, there are these city cards. Every city that you own or are dominant, so every city card you own is 1 point. Every province card you own, well, that depends on the province itself. Some are only like this, .5. Some are 1. And some even are so small that you only get points at the end of the game. For this one example, this is Drenthe. Now every individual faction has its own mission. So that means the Catholics get also additional points for every bishopric, there it is again, that word, that is Catholic. The Habsburgers get a point for every army box that has one of their armies in. So if this one is full with all Habsburgers, that doesn't matter, they get only 1 point. If they have an army here and an army here, that's 2 army boxes, that's 2 points. The burghers get a point for every trade town they own. So that means that they have 2 additional points now already. Actually, they have 3 because Arnhem is a trade town as well. And the reformers, those are these ones, get a point for every university they own. Okay, so far the introduction of the board itself and, well, all the abilities around it. Everything I didn't tell you yet, like these crosses, or what the rivers do, or how you can besiege like cities or stuff, or what this little drawing does. No, it doesn't do anything, it's just decoration. I will tell you when you are ready, because we are going to do round 0 now.